Black women, please hear me. Like, this is very important. Please hear me when I say this, because your life is actually on the line. Do not get pregnant. Do not get pregnant. If you are in the United States right now, what day is it? On February 10th, 2025. If you are in the United States right now, do not get pregnant. We're going to break down exactly why. Listen, this is not an all lives matter conversation right now. This is very specifically for Black women, Black people with uteruses. Let me be even more specific. Do not get pregnant. Let's break this down. So we're going to start off with an article from Business Insider titled "Maternal Death Rate Isn't as Bad If You Don't Count Black Women," GOP Senator says. I will be linking that somewhere. Now, this was back in 2002. So we're going to be linking this with things that are currently happening, but we're going to go through history a little bit as we speak, because this has been a thing that's been set in motion for a while, and it's only getting worse as time goes on. So we're going to start back in 2022. Let's read some pieces of this article. Read along with me as I read out loud. Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy said that the state's poor maternal mortality rate is only an outlier because of the high proportion of Black women in the state, according to Politico. Cassidy's comment was featured in Politico's in-depth. The states rank 47 out of 48 states assessed for maternal deaths, state officials said. Cassidy told the outlet that this is partly because about a third of our population is African American. African Americans have a higher incidence of maternal mortality. So if you correct our population for race, we're not as much of an outlier as it otherwise appear. He continued, "Now I say that not to minimize the issue, but to focus on the issue as to where it would be. For whatever reason, people of color have a higher incidence of maternal mortality." For whatever reason, racism. Now, when you continue reading the article, which I will have linked below, you will find out that for every one white mother that dies in the state of Louisiana, 4 Black mothers die. So we're going to take that information and we're going to move forward in history about 2 years. This article, which was published in 2024, is titled "Georgia Dismisses All Members of Maternal Mortality Committee After ProPublica Obtained Internal Details of 2 Deaths." So let's just break that down real quick. We're not going to read this entire article, but we will focus on the very beginning. Georgia officials have dismissed all members of a state committee charged with investigating deaths of pregnant women. The move came in response to ProPublica having obtained internal reports detailing 2 deaths. ProPublica reported in September that the deaths of Amber Thurman and Candy Miller, which the state mortality review committee had determined were preventable. Guess how many of those 2 women were Black? I'm not even going to give you time. Both of them. So basically, instead of saying, oh, you know what, I think that there is deeply internalized racism happening within this committee, within our hospitals, within places where pregnant people should feel safe enough to have like medical professionals perform something that a lot of people, like, pregnancy is dangerous. Point blank period. Pregnancy is incredibly dangerous. I think we've normalized it far too much. As somebody who is joyfully child-free, I see the dangers of it, and I say I was not particularly interested in reproducing in the first place, but even if I was, I think I enjoy breathing more than that. But we're going to put that to the side, right? That's me personally. Instead of saying, you know what, let's do better, let's look at the mistakes that have been made, let's look at the intentional inequities that have been perpetuated within the system and fix it, they said, you know what, we're just getting rid of this. We're getting rid of this entire committee. So now there are no records being kept. No records being kept of maternal mortality within the state of Georgia. Why is this incredibly important? Because much like Louisiana, Georgia has an incredibly high Black population. And if we look at this article right here, Georgia is the deadliest state for Black mothers, confronting the reality of Black maternal health. That was made before all of this nonsense went down. This article came out in 2023. Let's just read a little bit of it, just a little bit of maternal mortality has become a pressing issue in the United States, and the rates are alarmingly high for Black women, especially since the COVID-19 pandemic. Sister Love's home state of Georgia has been identified as the most dangerous for pregnant women. And then they got rid of the entire committee keeping track of just how dangerous it is. Probably because it's only going to get worse, and they don't want a paper trail. I also completely forgot to introduce myself. Hi, for those of you who are new here, my name is Shayna. I'm a journalist. I talk a lot about decentering men and child-free living on this page. If that sounds like a vibe, please like, share, and subscribe. I will also say there's a lot that I'm not able to say on here for safety reasons, video here, because I would like to remain safe also. So if you would like to continue these kinds of discussions and continue getting this kind of information, follow me here. Link up here, link below. I'm really trying to stay safe in these wild times, and if you watch this video, you will see why I feel so incredibly unsafe having further discussions in this kind of depth here. So do those things, please. But Shayna, those are just like 2 states that you mentioned. It can't be that bad everywhere. You know what? If you don't want to listen to me, listen to this person who documented just how dangerous it is to be a Black pregnant person in the United States using statistics.
You'd have to work dangerous occupations to equal the same level of risk as a Black woman faces to have 1 child. As you may know, according to the CDC, the maternal mortality rate for non-Hispanic Black women was 69.9 per 100,000. That's more than twice the maternal mortality for the average woman and 3 times the maternal mortality rate for white women. But let's compare that to some of the most dangerous jobs in the United States. In 2021, there was about 129 officers killed. That puts their mortality rate at about 19.5. That means that a police officer would have to spend 3 years and 7 months in field work just to equal the same level of risk as a Black woman faces to have 1 child. Next, let's look at firefighters. In 2020, there were about 1,041,200 firefighters in the United States. According to FEMA, about 102 of them lost their lives, which resulted in a mortality rate of about 9.8. That means that a firefighter would have to work about 7 years and 1 month to equal the same level of risk as Black women face just to have 1 child. Now let's look at construction workers. According to BLS, their mortality rate was about 3.6 for every 100,000 workers. And that means that a construction worker would have to work 19 years and 5 months to have the same level of risk on the job as the average Black woman faces to have 1 child. Okay, but what about soldiers? According to the U.S. Army, in 2021, the on-ground deployment mortality rate was about 1.3 per every 100,000. That means a United States soldier would have to spend 53 years and 8 months on deployment to equal the same level of risk as a Black woman faces to have, you guessed it, 1 child. Here's a couple of just miscellaneous other things. You can double check my work if you want to. A skydiver would have to perform around 64 jumps to equal the same level of risk as a Black woman faces to have 1 child. With car accidents, the deadliest cause of unnatural death in the United States, you would have to be in 52 car accidents to equal the same level of risk as a Black woman faces to have 1 child. And the last example I'm going to show in this video is bungee jumping. You would have to jump 350 times to have the same risk as a Black woman faces to have 1 child. Giving birth is more dangerous than nearly every job in the United States, and it's 3 times more dangerous for Black women. It's the single most dangerous thing that Americans will have to do in their lifetimes, so it should be voluntary. And as I said in that last video, if men won't listen to women who say this, maybe they'll listen to a grizzled white dude who says to listen to women.
So we're putting a lot of pieces together, right? Now take everything that we just talked about, where we're going back to the handy dandy. Take everything that we just talked about, and we're going to add in some more present context. So we're connecting that with the list of flagged terms for federal research, which basically means that there is a list of terms, if you're not familiar with this, that if it is included in federally funded research, medical research, that research will be flagged and likely taken down because these terms are in it. Terms like Black, terms like woman, terms like female, terms like inclusive, diversity, BIPOC. So any kind of research that involves terms like this or featuring communities that need to have language like this is likely going to be taken down. We take that, and then we connect it to the fact that the CDC is losing so much information So much information is being stripped from the CDC as we speak. Now, some information is getting put back on. I have not had the chance to see what it was and what it is now. And if it's like a TikTok situation where, oh, we got rid of TikTok, we changed the entire algorithm, put a lot of weird shit on there, and now here's the new TikTok. It's the same, I promise. I have not had the chance to have a look-see, so don't quote me on that. I'm not going to say that it's exactly the same or it's completely different. I'm just saying things are changing and things are being taken down from the CDC as we speak, especially as it relates to pregnant people, abortion care, and diversity and inclusivity. Black mothers and Black people with uteruses. Hear me, hear me. They're coming for us with the quickness. Now, I'm just gonna read this because I don't wanna mess this up. So the people that are out there, and I know I'm gonna be hearing y'all in the comments, but Shayna, isn't it an act of revolution to intentionally give birth to Black children right now? Like, isn't that fighting the system? Isn't that fighting the man? The revolutionary act is you living, period. And if you really, really have the itch to reproduce, if you are a Black woman, go somewhere, move somewhere, relocate to somewhere where your odds of surviving pregnancy are higher. And the child that you bring forth, who does not have a say in this, whether they exist or not, give them the best chance for a not traumatizing survival. Being Black in the United States is not easy. Being a Black mother, Black parent in the United States is not easy. I'm not a Black parent, but my mom is. I got a call from her today, the day that I am recording this, telling me to be safe because she's been seeing my YouTube videos. And she's like, oh, Shayna, you're talking about the government in that way? Now, Shayna, I really can't have anything happen to you. So hear me when I say this with my whole spirit. I'm speaking to my Black family, my Black potentially birthing family. Don't get pregnant. Don't get pregnant. Put the penis in a corner. Tell me, get away from me. I'm trying to live. I'm trying to keep breathing. Don't get pregnant. Get your birth control, because these men are unwell. These men are unwell, and sometimes accidents happen. You need to keep breathing, because I'm going to assume that you watched everything that came before this. And build community. That's where the focuses should be, okay? Follow me on Patreon for more information that I can't necessarily share here. Stay safe out there.